Hello, everybody. It's Laura Victoria Ward. I'm here in a Zoom room. Oh, I got some sparkle fingers from Lindsay. Nice. Woo. Some exciting new people here in my class with me today. And I am super happy to see everyone. But so we're going to start with some inner stuff. We're going to do some continuum breath and sounding things. And then I thought we'd play with efforts. But since we have some new people here, Lindsay Bell, have you had any Laban before, or is it totally new for you?
Not totally new. I'm a theater practitioner, so I've kind of skirted around, snorkeled around the edges of Laban. I haven't done like a full
Right.
on training in Laban though, but I am aware of the process. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we're gonna start with one hand on your chest and sort of coming to a landing, and one hand on your belly. And ideally, with your hand on your chest and your hand on your belly, without trying to change your breathing, you're just gonna feel your breathing underneath your hands. So feeling the movement of your breath. And as you're sensing into slowing down and coming into the movement of your breath, which with your hands on the front space, imagine that you have a hand on your back and on your upper and lower back as well. So that you're imagining that you're between your two hands or your four hands, just breathing into the front and back space. And it's not that you need to make it bigger or change anything, you're just feeling into it, feeling the movement of the breath. And if it's helpful to close your eyes, feel free to do that. Letting yourself slow down and enter the sort of interior space. And popping in the idea that the breath is this inner outer space system that brings the breath into our bodies, and then all that oxygen moves around our whole body, and then we exhale and the breath goes back out into the external space. So having this sense of breath and space and this sort of interrelationship of ourselves with what's around us. And then you can let your hands come down and just staying with the sense of the breath, but now imagining your whole body sort of growing and shrinking with the inhale and exhale. And it's not that you have to put it in and make it more, but just feeling it as it's inside of you. So that on the inhale you're getting bigger, and on the exhale you're getting slightly smaller. So if you're like, if I do it with my hands, it's kind of like. So if you want to add the hands out in front of you, you can, or you can just sense into the feeling. So depending on your need for like the extra imagery, if you can feel it really well from the inside without the hands, that's great. You can stay there. If you want to add the hands, so that there's a growth on the inhale and a shrinking on the exhale, growing and shrinking with the breath. And as you're growing and shrinking with the breath, start to tune into where are you really feeling that the most? What's popping out for you naturally? And maybe as something pops out naturally, you start to become aware of another location or something like that. So feeling into your sensation of breathing, feeling into your sensation of where are you breathing. And if it's awkward to feel into the breath that way, then just feel into your skin instead. So feel the outer surface of your body. That's another option. Or you could even ping back and forth between the lungs and the skin. And then dropping in. I know I'm dropping a lot of this stuff in, but we're only going to be together for an hour. So all of this, feel free to take at another time and play with. The last thing to think about in this little exploration is that our heart, so here's my rib cage, right? It's my fake rib cage on my shirt, but inside of that are my lungs, and inside of that is my heart. So I am going to imagine my heart doing the breathing. I just read this thing, Bonnie Brainbridge Cohen posted it. I saw it on Instagram, and she's like, imagine that your heart is doing the breathing. So just imagining breathing from your heart. Hi, Dana and Dana. You're both named Dana. And Hanan, I don't know if you heard me say hello before, but imagine breathing from your heart. So that inside of those lungs, in your heart, there's this nice sort of pulsation going on.
Mm.
And as we tune into that pulsation of the heart, maybe you can just feel the heart breathing, the heart pumping. Maybe you can feel the heart. Maybe you can feel your pulse. Maybe it's in your hands or in your neck or in some other part. Maybe you can feel the system of your blood flow moving through you from that deep heart space. And whatever you're feeling right now, think of what sort of dynamic qualities are coming alive for you. Like, are you feeling a sense of lightness or a sense of fluidity or flow? Any kind of descriptive words that come up for you. What is it? What are you feeling? What are you noticing? What is the dynamic of what you are feeling in your breath and in your, what's the dynamic quality of your being inside of yourself right now? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel floofy? Does it feel zigzaggy, spirally? What are the, if you have words for it, and it might be a changing thing, what are you feeling in there? What areas of your body are talking to you? And what are they saying?
Mm.
And then from that place, we're just going to slightly and softly open our eyes and just start to look really slowly around so that you're allowing the space around you to come into your eyes. And as that space around you is coming into your eyes, as big or as small or as meandering a pathway as is interesting to you, what's coming in? What are you feeling and seeing, sensing? What is coming in? There may be many answers to each of these questions, but what's the top? What are the main things? I'm seeing space things. I'm seeing plants. I'm feeling this weird tension pattern that kind of goes on the left side of my body and zigzags through. I'm feeling my occipital joint. I'm feeling my eyes. They feel softer now than they have. I'm feeling my fingers and I'm letting them move a little bit. So let's just add one more thing, some micro movement in your fingers. And the micro movement may look like nothing is happening. It may, you can slow down and soften and close your eyes, and almost like your hands are in like a really soft, gentle pool of water, and they are just gently being moved by the water. I'm holding my hands up just so that you can see, but yours could be down, they could be on your lap, it could be tiny movement, but just feeling some sort of micro movement in your hands, in your little tree frog fingertips. And as you're feeling that micro movement in your hands, or maybe it's big movement. If your body desires big movement, that is totally acceptable too. Let it be whatever you want it to be. Let's start to go to the feet and toes. So feeling, you're kind of like imagining like little suction cuppy feet and toes that are just sticking to the ground. So energy grounding. And you could be standing, you could be seated, you could be laying down even, any way that feels good to you and nourishing. But start to, what feels good? Like what qualities of movement are desired in your body? Like my toes really want to actually spread and move. Not, they don't want to do micro movement. They kind of want to really go for it. My hands are okay with the micro movement. So let your body do whatever feels interesting and alive, just coming into the sense of the wholeness and the aliveness of our bodies. And that each little area of awareness that we're sort of accessing or developing could be a full day exploration in itself. But just giving this idea so that we're coming into this wholeness pattern of being alive within our bodies, in the space, with each other, all that kind of stuff. So maybe we'll start to attune to the screen for a second and just let yourself maybe move a little bit towards your screen and a little bit away, so that we're starting to wake up back space. And you could have, we're waking up the sagittal, the forward and backward. I'm going to go into, maybe I'm not, I'm going to back up, I'm going to move away from, or I'm going to move toward. And as I'm moving toward, I'm going to play with you guys and see what you're doing too. Like, what is happening in Lindsay Bell or Lindsay Elise Gunn Oulette? What's happening in each person's room? What's happening as we see each other? And what are we feeling? Like, oh, I was in this very much my own space for a while, and now I'm going, oh, I'm with other people. And this idea of sort of the individual me and then the group, I feel like it's a really important balance to have. In different cultures, some cultures are very group-oriented, some cultures are very individual-oriented, but finding this place where we're balancing our groupness and our individuality. It's something that, it's not a major theme in Laban, but it's really in the work. And I feel like it should be a major theme, the individual versus the group. But not versus, the individual in harmony and balance with the group. How do we find our way with ourselves and with the group? And so in that, let's start to let our exploration of movement get a little bit bigger. And maybe the group is my arm and my leg. Maybe the group is my arm and Hanan's arm and some other part of the body. Maybe the group is exploring from a different thing, but allow yourself to take on movement from other people's rooms, from other people's boxes. And also allow yourself to do whatever feels good to you. So you can, like, I've been sitting too long now, my hips are feeling weird. So I'm just gonna let myself re-establish what it is to be standing on legs. And you can take this seated, you can even lay down, you can roll around, but a really free flow, it feels good to me, generated sort of improvisation. And as we're in that improvisation, let's start to play with spiraling. So in Laban, we would call this rotary factor, but it's just a spiral. How can we spiral? How can we twist? When we spiral and twist, the fascia in our body gets a whole new way of being. So letting ourselves find spirals, twists, letting ourselves kind of move out of this sort of upright, linear, human way of being and move it into more, I don't know, think of like little sea creatures, like how seahorses can spiral their little tails, right? They can use their little seahorse tails to propel themselves around. So letting yourself find spirals and start to let that movement propel you. You can feel yourself land and then rebound from the ground, maybe coming down. That was something they talked about. So me and I think Lindsay and maybe, I don't know, maybe other people were in this, but I was just in this ISMETA, International Somatic Movement Educators and Therapists conference. And one thing that kept coming up was gravity and sort of the ground force that comes back to you. So as you go down, letting the earth rebound up into you. So it's almost like we have this idea of a spring in our body, that we're landing and then rebounding. And it's not like, oh, I have to do all the work to rebound. Like, we know if we're jumping, if I jump and I really work through my ankles, it's going to pop me back up. It's not necessarily going to pop me back up. I could go down and stay. But if my body is working like in a sort of spring way, I can get that rebound from the floor. So see if you can start to find that. You don't have to jump, but finding this sense of suspension in down and up, maybe in forward and backward, just giving yourself more capacity. And as you're in that, notice if there are any qualities of your movement that you find interesting and delicious. Like, oh, I'm finding this spiraling thing in my arms. I can feel lightness in my fingers. I can feel groundedness in my legs. And that's just an idea. Or I can like feel this expansive outer movement all around. And as I'm feeling that, I can feel this weight shifting from leg to leg. I can feel this head-tail spinal movement. I can feel my ribcage and lungs. We're just going to stay with this for a minute or two longer. Coming back into the idea of the breath. Where's the breath in your body? What's happening with that now? What feels alive in you? Is there anything you can let go of? And I think I'm going to bring us in just for a quick check-in. And then we're going to go into some more specific, more sort of linear Laban-esque space. But I wanted to play a little bit with efforts. And in Laban effort, we're talking about sort of the dynamic quality of movement, not how hard you worked, but it was light and free, or it was free flow or bound flow, lightweight, strong weight, direct space, indirect space, quick time, sustained time, speeding up, slowing down, those types of things. So that's that sort of dynamic qualities that are possible. Of course, there's a million more. So any kind of movement description, use it all. So coming in for a check-in, what did you notice? What popped out for you? What was interesting or was unfamiliar? If anything. So feel free to unmute and speak.
So I
Yeah,
didn't
Carmen.
move in this way, I think some months ago. So first of all, I have to start sensing my weight sensing. Then I have felt very light and fluid, very nice, very warm, very very pleasant. Yeah, I'm very comfortable. Yeah, very comfortable.
Yay!
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And Fabian says, I love the feeling of letting go, abandon myself into gravity. Yeah, I think there's this thing about gravity that it's here supporting us. It's not just dragging us down. Like if we didn't have it, we'd fall off of the earth. We'd fall up. Like and if you read about astronauts, they lose the density of their blood, they lose the density of their bones, they lose the density of their connective tissue, and some of it they never get back. Like when they come back, their blood fills up first, connective tissue second, and bones the last thing to really fill up. But they never get to where they were before, right? So like we need gravity. It is supporting our bodies. It's not just dragging us down and giving us wrinkles. It's giving us all of this as well, this life force. What else? Yeah, Peen.
After you commented about the jumping, I started also to jump a little bit, or it made it lighter. I don't know what you said that it changed it in my mind that it's like, but like, oh, I can bounce. That was, I don't know what it was, but something clicked.
So much of it is in how we perceive something, right? And how we think about it and how we image something. It's so fun, like it's how we build our world and our reality. What else?
I missed a chunk of the meta, but I love what you offered about rebounding from gravity, or like feeling this support rising up into us from it. That felt really great. And I also love the kind of watery themes, Pisces season now, and watery themes.
The watery theme is always a good thing. Like when we started with the air, with the breath, that in and out, but the water, the fluid, it's in our tissue. And the more that we can be three-dimensional, the more we can hydrate, and that like the sort of gels that are there, the snotty gels that are there in our connective tissue and fascia can kind of organize in ways that are more supportive. And that goes even to our bone. Like it, bone is connective tissue. And it's fed by these other systems. Like everything is this huge interrelation. So like all of it is fed by movement. What else? What else do you guys notice? Anything else to say before we go on? Yeah, Dana. Dana Levy.
Hi. I'm so surprised to see another Dana. Name spelled the same person here. It's really rare. I noticed a difference between the spirals moving from the inside to the outside. And if I moved too quickly, it would hop to an external shaping and I'd lose the internal connections. There's this kind of fun play between where the spirals are connected from some origin source point inside. And if I moved too quickly, then I was like making a shape out here. So it was kind of fun.
Interesting. Anyone else? Okay, no need to have to say anything. It's just an option. I feel like I learn so much about movement when I hear other people speak about their experience that it's always like, oh, it's great. Okay, so let's do a really quick review of space. So we have some new people. And then I want to go into playing in the cube, which we can go through. And I want to play with the float punch, flip press, dab ring, glide slash. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry at all. It doesn't matter. It's like, and I know, yeah, I know some people have to leave. Oh yeah, we lost Fabian, and I know that Hanan has to go in a minute. So I know oh no, Fabian, you're still there. Okay. I can't, like, my eyeballs can only focus a little bit on the screen. I'm glad, but the boxes all rearranged themselves. I think we lost, oh, Cassie's there. Okay, I don't know what happened, and it doesn't matter. So let's start standing up, and we're gonna go through this kind of quickly. So for my people that are new to this, don't even worry at all if you don't take it all in. Just take in whatever lands without effort. So we don't have to grab at it and try and make it work. We can just go, oh, okay, or not. I like to learn from the body and then into the mind often, so that's the way we're going to do this. So we're going to do this whole scale of movement, which takes place in the octahedron. And if we were inside an octahedron, there would be a point above us, a point below us, a point on either side, a point in front, and a point in back. It's got 6 points and 8 faces. And here's a very tiny one, but it looks like this. So here's an octahedron. There's my up-down, my side-side. Here's my front point. There's a back point. This up-down is the vertical, the side-side is the horizontal, the forward-backward is the sagittal. And we're going to do a scale of movement that moves through that. So we're going to start with, it's going to be your right hand, it's my left hand. We're going to go to place high and place low. We're going to go side across, crossing the arm and leg, trying to keep the hips pointing front, and then open it wide. And then we're going to take it backwards, right behind you, sagittal, and straight in front of you, forwards. And we'll do that side one more time. Vertical, up, and down. Vertical dimension. Horizontal dimension, side across, side open. Sagittal dimension, backwards, right behind, and forwards, right in front, with my hips still facing front. So if I turn my pelvis there, then my hand is actually to the side. So I want to have my hand right in front of the middle of my body. So that's how we define sagittal. We use our hips as sort of the point. So to define space around our bodies. So here's my vertical, here's my horizontal, there's my sagittal. If I turn my hips, there's my sagittal. If I turn my hips, there's my sagittal. So we want to keep them trying to face front. Let's do it on the other side. We are going to go place high, place low, side across, side open, backwards. I just got to move this guitar. And I saw it before I started class. I didn't think it was going to get in my way, but it is. Up, vertical, high, vertical dimension, and low. Horizontal dimension, side across, side open. Sagittal dimension, backwards, so I'm reaching into the back space, and then reaching into the front space. Yes, very nice. So that is our dimensional cross-up axis. So my single dimension, here's my single vertical dimension. It has 2 directions. It has up and down, but it has 1 dimension, 1 spatial pole, vertical. My horizontal dimension, my side-side, it has 2 directions, right side, left side, both sides, but it has 1 spatial pole, the horizontal. My sagittal, my forward-backward, again, 1 spatial pole, 1 dimension. It is sagittal. It has forwards and backwards, 2 directions. If I change this, I'm going to open my vertical dimension into the vertical plane. So my vertical plane is now 2-dimensional. And obviously we're 3-dimensional creatures. This is Laban language. I talked to an architect about this, trying to explain. He's like, but you're 3-dimensional. I'm like, yeah, but this is using the language in a slightly different way, because I am 3-dimensional, but I'm making my body sort of 2-dimensional. So this is Laban language. So here I have, we'll do it with both sides of our body. High right, high left, low right, low left. High right, high left, low right, low left. If I did it with one hand, I'm going to start with, I'm going to cross. I'm going to go high right, high left, low right, low left. So I'm doing one hand, high right and crossed. Now I'm open. Sorry, I threw that other hand up there just to confuse you. If I do it on my other side, I'm going to cross again. High left, high right, low left, low right. So it's this hand, high left, high right. The other hand's working as counterbalance, low left, low right. So that's our vertical plane. So the vertical plane has one primary spatial pole, vertical. A secondary spatial pole is added to it, a little bit of horizontal. So I have up, down, a little bit of side, side, and I'm in the vertical plane. If I do this in the horizontal, I have my side, side as my horizontal dimension. I'm going to add a little bit of forward, backward, a little bit of sagittal. That's my secondary spatial pole in the horizontal plane. So I'm going to flip around to do this so that you're going to step the same way I am. I'm going to go right, forward, middle, left, forward, middle. I'm using both sides of my body, right, back, middle, left, back, middle. Right, forward, middle, left, forward, middle, right, back, middle, left, back, middle. That is like I'm in a big rectangular table, and the two heads of the table are on either end. So each of these dimensions, each of these planes, if we think of them like a rectangle, it's sort of the helpful way. So this would be, my piece of paper isn't quite the right size. This would be my vertical plane. I have my 2 points, high right, high left, low right, low left. Yeah. If I move it this way, it's my horizontal plane. There's my right forward middle, left forward middle, right back middle, left back middle. If I go this way, it's my sagittal, forward high, forward low, backward high, backward low. So yeah, here's my sagittal. If I move this way, that's still my sagittal, right? Because I've moved my hips. So it's easy to think of these things like a rectangle. And if we put all those rectangles together, we haven't gotten to the sagittal yet, but it would be this shape. So this right here is my vertical plane. Through this way is my horizontal plane. And through this way is my sagittal plane. So this is the shape that if we're moving in the dimensions, if we're moving in all three of those planes, if we're moving in all three of those planes, this is the shape that we have the icosahedron. But what I want to do is the cube, because I want to play with these opposite corners with effort. So first we're just going to learn we didn't do sagittal, but you saw it in here, so I'm going to skip that for right now. For my newer people, don't worry. Some of it's going to land, some of it's going to be like, what? But the idea is basically that we're just opening up the idea of space around our body, right? We're opening up into, I know both Fabienne and Hanan had to leave, so whenever you have to leave, yes, I know. Yes, thank you so much. Nice to see you, Hanan. So we're going to move into the cube. So the cube is basically a dice, as you know. There's a cube, a very small one. And if I put my octahedron inside my cube, the top would hit the face of the top, the bottom would hit the face. I would hit the 6 faces of the cube. So the cube has 6 faces and 8 points. The octahedron has the exact opposite. It's so weird how that can work, right? This has 6 points and 8 faces. This is one of the things that boggles my mind. But this is how each of these things nestles within the other one, which I can also show you, like, in some of the art. There's a cube. If I drew lines around all of these and made all the connections, you can see how things nestle within each other. So, yeah. I have one more. Here's another version of it. This one's an Anthony painting. That one's my painting, but this one's an Anthony painting. But here you can see, like, depending on how you look at it, you could see the tetrahedron, the octahedron. The icosahedron is hard to see in this one because you have to add extra things in there. But it can be also done. I think I actually have it in one of my books. Next time I'll bring that to the picture of the icosahedron. Anyway, when you start to paint the space and draw the space, it has a whole nother layer of your conceptual and physical feeling of that. So at some point I want to do a workshop of how to do it because it's really simple and fun. And it involves like compasses and rulers. Like it's like little kid like art school. Love it. All right, so let's move the cube. So we're going to start with, so what's going to happen in the cube? You imagine that you're in a perfect square. So you can see that this room, the way that I'm facing this room is not going to be what you can use for your mind. But your room might be a perfect square, and if you can like orient to the corners, then you can find your cube, or just imagine it. Use your little imagination. So let's just find the point. So I'm going to have a right forward high point in my cube, a left forward high point in my cube, right forward low point, left forward low point. Then I'm going to have a right back high point and a left back high point, right back low point, left back low. And what we want to think of in the cube, where in our octahedron, these were like single dimensions, in our plane, 2 dimensions. In our cube, we have 3 equal dimensions. So to my right forward high, I want to be equally forward as up as sideways. So that I'm not just, it's not my hand right forward high, it's I'm going into the space of right forward high. So I'm reaching out into that diagonal. And then we're gonna do this all with one hand. So we're not talking about body part, we're talking about Laban space. So I'm gonna go right forward high, and then I'm gonna cross to the exact opposite and go left back low. So I'm twisting, spiraling down to that opposite corner. And then I'm gonna go to left forward high, and I'm gonna cross up here, and then I'm gonna open to go to the back, right back low. And my other hand is a counter tension. Then I'm gonna go around 2, left back high. I'm going to go to the exact opposite corner, right forward low. And then I'm going to take it to my last diagonal, right back high, and I'm going to cross it down to left forward low. So we're always going to go to the exact opposite when we're coming from the top. And this is like more advanced theory. So if don't worry if you remember any of this. Like if you just get your body moving into those places, bravo. That is plenty, it's enough. It doesn't mean that you have to understand all this theory. Yes, Lindsay.
I put tape on my floor to mark out the corners.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, so I like the more sort of, I have to show you this, the more sort of visual things that you can have, like this is my really sad cube that I tried to make with tape and, hold on, it's getting there. There we go. With tape and string and skewers for kebabs. So my kebab skewer cube. So those strings in the middle are what we're traveling. So if we're going right forward high, we're going from here down to there. That is our inner pathway. And we call those in Laban diagonals. So when it's that super 3-dimensional thing, it's the diagonal. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like it was funny because I felt kind of annoyed making that thing. Like my little corners weren't working very well. But at the same time, there's something about building that's just really satisfying. Because like, yeah, it's like twisting itself down to the ground right now. And I know people do it with toothpicks and like jujubes, like little juju candies, and you can stick toothpicks in. So like that might be something that's more doable. Of course.
Yeah. My students and I took chopsticks and made the dimensional cross of axis.
But as
I
a
was
cross,
trying to
right?
explain it to them. Yeah, and just kind of held them with our fingers to get the chopsticks pointing and all. You probably have that.
I do have it. I have this. This was the other thing I made, which is a this is the plane.
Yeah, I made one of those a couple of weeks ago.
Right. So this set of the planes, what it is the inside of this. So this is my vertical. There's my horizontal. I'm just going to tilt it, and there's my sagittal. Right. It's a pretty crappy version, but yeah. Wait, you're muted, Dana.
I was just going to say if we could like chop up a Barbie doll and stick it in there so that you could see the body in the middle. Because the pictures are great, but this is really cool. You have one, don't you?
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that because, like, I do.
Sorry, no offense.
Not
I'm a serial killer, really.
Yeah, that's what she said. But like, you know, you could put Big Bird. The Big Bird would probably fit pretty well in if I could hold my cube. But you know, it's like if we get these images of bodies inside the space, it layers that knowing into another level. Actually, I had a bunch of dinosaurs. I was going to do that with you guys and figure out what's going where. But let's play with the cube with a little bit of effort instead. We'll move through the patterns of the cube on both sides a few times, And then we'll add effort without you having to know what everything is. But I want to try punching in all the different places. I want to try floating in the different places. And so you don't need to know all the theory. It's just to play and to give your body more. Well, what I find this work does is if normal people have the ABCs of movement, but on a sort of actual body perceptual level, we really are perceiving so much more than what's coming to our conscious mind. So much of Laban movement analysis is just filling out the dictionary or the encyclopedia of what's possible in movement. And when you start to add those possibilities into your range of, yeah, now I punch, it changes your expression of being a person. It changes your possibilities, and it can be very uncomfortable. Because if you don't like lightness, go ahead, Peen.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit off topic, but today I always embrace trees, and it was storming, and normally a tree doesn't move, and now the tree, and I was startled with the little movement the tree made. It was but it was beautiful, and how to that you feel how the tree moves that it can move, and that I move in all these dimensions. It was really, beautiful.
That's amazing. There's a whole thing that we talk about shape and shaping that would also, in Laban, be how you related to that tree and how that tree related to you. So that's a great story and super connected to us being human. Like, go and touch a tree, right? Like, what makes you more, or be with a tree. I was in the city yesterday, in New York City, and in my apartment building in the city, it's an old, crappy apartment building that nothing's been taken care of in years and years and years. And hold on, Teresa's coming in. So I'm there in the city, and I go up onto my roof, and there's a courtyard in the back. It's not like a nice courtyard. It's like the garbage cans, all the things, but there's a bunch of trees back there. And there are also a bunch of birds. And so I'm up on the roof, and I'm looking at lots of different types of trees back there. And they're all, one of them is starting to bud. So one of them's starting to come to life. But I'm looking at them, and I just felt my whole nervous system just go, it just dropped down into that parasympathetic place. So it's like that, it's such an important piece of being human and experiencing ourselves in relationship, right? As soon as I tuned into those trees and the birds, suddenly everything else was gone. And I'm in the middle of New York City, but suddenly I was in nature and I was seeing all of this stuff that, like, I saw these, there's an empty building behind my building, which, like, my building's actually 4 buildings together, and 2 of the back ones are completely empty. They're trying to get everybody out, so they haven't been filling these things. So, and then I see this little tiny opening in the window, and I'm watching these pigeons come and go out of the window in the back space. And as I'm seeing all of this, it's like this little gift of slowing down into a different reality for a while. Instead of being in my world, I'm suddenly in this, like, bird and tree world, and, like, everything shifted for me then. Hey, Teresa. Okay, so let's come back to the cube, and we're going to move the cube. So we're going to do the same one we just did, and just quickly, here's the theory. If I'm starting with my right hand, I'm going to start in an open position, and then I'm going to go to the exact opposite. My next starting point is going to be the next high. It's going to be crossed. It's going to go to the opposite position. Then I'm going to continue around that way. So it's gonna, if I was on the other side, it would start open, go to the opposite, cross over, go to the opposite, go to the back corner, go to the opposite, other back corner, go to the opposite, then I'm back to the front. So there is sort of a pathway that this is going through. You do not need to remember any of that if this is new for you. But let's just do it. So let's put it in our bodies. We're going to reach to right forward high, and we're going to cross to left back low. We're going to come up, crossing our body to left forward high, go to the exact opposite position, right back low. We're going to come up the back to left back high, and make sure we're getting back. So it's this big spiral, and then we're going to go to right forward low, and then we're going to, yes, that's it. And then we're going to take it to right back high and cross down to left forward low. So remember, when I'm saying right and left, we're getting side, side, but don't think like Really get that forwardness, get the upness, get the downness. Really think of those really pure three-dimensionals of those diagonals in your cube. If you can think that way. That's why I feel like if children were learning this, geometry would be so much easier, mathematics would be easier. If you can conceptualize the stuff in your body, it can come out on paper in a very different way. All right, so let's go with the other side. We're going to go to left forward high, going equally forward, up, and sideways, to the exact opposite, right back low. Crossing, trying to keep the hips square to the front. So I'm in a big spiral, really shaping around myself. Then I'm going to come up to right forward high, crossing, my hips are square to the front, and opening to the exact opposite diagonal in the back, left back low. Taking it around the back, right back high, 2, left forward low, and then the last one. Left back high, 2, right forward low, crossing. So let's do that side one more time. We're going to open up to right forward high. That's it. And cross to the exact opposite in the cube. Left back low. Coming up, left forward high. Sorry, right forward high. I'm doing my opposite, so it's weird for me. Right forward high, 2, left back low. Taking it to the back. Spiraling ourselves up into that space. Right back high, left forward low, and then up the outside 2, left back high, crossing down to right forward low. So if I was to add Laban effort, and it doesn't matter if you know any of this because you'll understand the names. So we'll just play with the float punch diagonal. So float, it means I'm going to meander my way up, light, and slowing down. So I'm meandering, up light, and slowing down. Then I'm going to go the exact opposite to a punch, punching to the back. So we can just take that for a minute. Floating up, it's indirect, light, and sustained, it's slowing down. And then direct, quick, and strong, boom, punching to the back. Meandering up, float, 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 to boom, punch. I could do it where I'm going float, 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 coming back, reversing the float, starting to get strong, and then boom, where it's changing more in the middle. But that takes a lot of know-how. Let's try it on the other side. We're going to float up, float, 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 letting that floating lightness and indirectness and sustained time go into your whole system. And then taking it down and boom, popping into the back with a punch. So again, float, 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 and pop. So what I want to try and do is just play with float and punch. So those are these exact opposite effort qualities, these dynamics. So remember in the very beginning when we were moving and just feeling like, what's the salt and pepper in your stew? What are you putting into your stew to make it taste good, make it interesting? So these effort qualities are the sort of, oh, I'm moving with light and indirect movement. Like, it's like, or boom, it's strong. And like I can do it with my voice. And just to even add this thought, when I talk up here in this light sort of indirect way, it has a very different thing than if I talk down here in a very direct and strong way, right? I could talk direct and strong and be very different. I added some indirectness to that to make it not so hard. Did you see that? It's like, so, but when I'm talking in these different manners, my whole body is participating on a different tissue level. I'm vibrating in a different location. So when I'm speaking down from here, I'm connected into my roots. I'm connected into the ground. I'm connected. You can see the, but if I'm up here, I'm kind of floating away from the ground. I'm like not so connected into my roots. Although I might be connected into my roots to really rebound up into that. So just to think about that, like we respond to different people and their ways of being on an animal level first. For me, like there's certain things that I see in certain people and immediately my whole system goes, I just don't trust them. I can't. I'm sorry. It's not possible. I know that I can't because my body knows that I do not trust that person. And it may not be that they're untrustworthy. It just may be that some of their choices in movement and behaviors and my choices they don't meet really, you know, and it might be at some point that I can sort of trust them, but I will never be able to really trust them, right? Because my animal body goes, something's not right here. So I think about that a lot, and especially with the choices that a lot of people make when they're aging or different things. It's like, what are you doing to yourself? Like, do I see the person that I know? Or, you know, I mean, and people could feel that way about me. Like, who's that pink-haired person? Like, that's a threat. That's too weird for me. I don't want to know what that is, right? Like, whatever, however we respond to people is happening in our body at an animal level first. Then maybe we're thinking about it. But however we're behaving in that world is also happening at a tissue vibrational level for us. So like depth, like that's why the sounding practices, and Bartenieff has this whole sounding practice of, well, it's basically ooh, oh, ah, a, e, that goes from here, here's your ooh, like ooh, oh, ah, e. And it's like you're vibrating the tissue in those different places. If I take it a lot higher, that vibration is going to be vibrating a lot more in the bones of my cranium than down here. But that all that kind of stuff comes into Om, Yahweh, Yahweh. It's what people do. So like we can see how spirit or religion or anything else can also enter into the space of sounding. Or think of monks chanting or anything like that. What that does on a tissue level to our nervous systems, how things are behaving is a huge thing that we normally don't talk about. It is affecting us, right? It's not so much in the vernacular, although now it's starting to come into it because somatics are getting bigger and people have access to each other on these types of formats. Like we can come and talk about the weirdest shit together on Zoom, and the 6 other people in the world that know what that is might find me because I keep putting it out there, right? Whereas, I mean, there's more than 6 people that know about this or that think about this, but just to say how the world is changing and the shaping of so how we behave within that world, how we behave within our tissues, how we behave with each other matters and doesn't matter, right? It's all of the above. So let's punch everywhere in the cube for a second. And one thing I want to say is, so Colleen Wall, who's a friend of mine, and also she's a CLMA. She was trained in the Laban from Peggy Hackney, who I love and highly, and she teaches this work as well. And she's also an effort genius. But she did a whole thing at the, Dana was there too, at the ISMETA conference. Dana Levy. She did a whole thing on the value of learning to box for women, but especially to punch, to be strong, to be direct, for somebody to be able to take your weight and for you to be able to really give your weight to somebody. And for me, like I've been doing pole dancing, and that's been one of my saving graces of this time in lockdown, is like it gives me the physical outlet of the intensity that I need. And people are like, oh, there's a bunch of intensity junkies. There's nothing wrong with developing strength. You know, if that's the only thing you're doing, maybe that's problematic. But we want to have all of these possibilities. Like, we don't just want to be one trick pony, like I only do one thing. In our bodies, we want our tissue and our brains to be able to wrap around a lot of different possibilities, and then it's easier to be in the world, because, oh yeah, there's that possibility. So let's punch the cube. I'm sorry, I keep talking. Blah, blah, blah. I just get too excited. So we're going to punch the whole way around. So we're going to go to, let's go right forward high, punch it up, boom! And then punch down, left back low, boom! We're going to punch it up, left forward high, punch it up, and then the opposite, punch it down. It's so funny to do it this way. Then you're going to go to, left back high, punch it up. That's really hard to punch there. And then right forward low, boom! And then our last one, right back high, boom! 2, left forward low, boom! Super weird to punch in some of those spaces. So just to rinse and rip out that side before we do the other side, we're now going to float in every direction. So we're going to float our way, light, indirect, and sustained. And then we're going to float our way down, into the exact opposite corner. And then we're going to float our way into the crossed. And then we're going to float our way down to the opposite corner. Floaty, floaty, float, float. And then we're going to float our way to the back, cross back, high. Oh, float. And then we're going to float our way down to the other corner. And then our last one, floating our way to the open back, high, and floating our way down, crossing into the opposite crossed corner. Oh, I gotta say, that was much more enjoyable than the punching. It was weird, fun and weird. Let's try it on the other side of our body. So we're gonna go left, forward, high. It's hard for me to name all this stuff, and so just sort of follow along. If you go to a different place, it doesn't matter. That's great. Let's go. Left, forward, high. And then punching. Exact opposite corner. Boom. Coming up. Forward and crossed. Punch up. Open and backwards. Boom. Opposite corner. Coming around to the back. Crossed into the back. Boom. Open into the front. Boom. Open into the back. Boom. And crossed into the front. Boom. Okay. Let's do the float. Open into the front. To the exact opposite, floating it down to the back corner. You can hear my voice has changed in the float. Coming in, floating up, crossed to the front. Oh, floaty float. And then open to the back, floating our way down into that. Trying to get the float to your whole body. Then you're going to come from there and cross it to the back. See if you can float your way up to the crossed back. And float your way down to the exact opposite corner, open to the front. And then opening it up, open to the back, and float it down, crossed to the front. Yeah, super weird. We could do that with all the different efforts. I mean, that's a setting of 3 efforts smashed together for each of those things. Then we're going to their exact opposite if we did it for real. But we only played it. So what did you notice? Did anything come up for you? There's some really challenging areas in there to do it that way. Carmen, how was it for you?
Yeah, I had forgotten that effort was the most tiring thing of Lavan. Yeah, how to go, intentionally to strong, to light, to be indirect in the 8 corners has been exhausting. And I was thinking, how can be direct to that corner in an indirect way? So, wow, indirectness in the 8 corners has been tiring.
Yeah, like you really had to focus to do that. How about everybody else? Was it as, there are people, so I'm definitely a very space-oriented person. I can do effort, I like effort, I love shape, I love the body level, I'm into anatomy and all that kind of stuff, but I'm definitely a space person. So effort is always kind of like, yeah, okay, let's do that. It's not like, oh, it's the natural thing. I mean, it's in my body, I do it, but I don't think about it the same way I think about space. What else did other people notice?
There's a real difference between doing the idea of the effort and being the effort. And, because I'm a little out of practice, vacillating between the two, the difference between thinking light and actually feeling light from bottom to top. Like, how can it be light in my contact with the floor, in the feeling in my belly, in my heart, in my arm, even as I move, like Carmen said, indirectly? How do I trick myself into not being direct? Like, it's such a mind fuck. But it's so great. And unlike you, I love the effort because it's so freaking challenging, and I hated space for so long. So it's really great to practice this, in this environment, because I see your love for one, and it's super fun.
I mean, I love it all, but there's just certain ones like I could do space upside down backwards. Like I don't need to think about it. It's like, oh yeah. But the other stuff.
Efforts are kind of a mind fuck, because if you do it too long, I think the efforts, because it has to do with behavior and psychology, it's a real, I feel it can be very dangerous in many ways, in a wonderful and dangerous way. But sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm a mad woman. Just go into it and float your way up there and be out in that world. Yeah,
I think you just named fascinating. I think you named something, and I think the danger. It is dangerous because if you start to move differently, things are going to be different, and it's like you now have to adapt to a different version of you that has things that the old one didn't have. And sometimes the reason the old one didn't have them, well, for most people, we grow up, we're coping with the environment. That's what
that's what Martina's book is called.
it's like, okay, I learned to hold these certain patterns in my body, or I learned how to do something really well that's exactly the opposite of what I need to do right now, right? And so when I was
Yeah.
studying Laban, which was in the 90s, I went to a therapist for a while. I was like, I need another person.
Oh, I should have been to a therapist.
Yeah, I need somebody else that can sort of get this. I have to say, I went to the wrong therapist. It was like, I went to her for like 4 months and I was like, this just isn't working. But what I will say that for my body, what does work is going to the chiropractor, getting hands-on body work, and somebody that I can also talk a little bit with. But like my body needs it more than I need to talk about things. I need somebody to like help arrange and
Yeah.
and talk to my body more than I need verbal therapy. But
The
okay,
other thing that I noticed was the depth to which it affected my breath, that my breathing pattern is so strongly affected, and breath being the link of the, kind of the mind and the physical body. That value, I was reminded of that value and the strength of that effect as well. Okay, I'll shut up now.
okay. So I want to go to what Lindsay was saying. Do you want to just say it, Lindsay Bell? Do you want to talk and say it yourself, or?
Sure, no, and I accidentally sent a private note to somebody when I wanted to comment earlier. Um, as a theater practitioner, the possibilities and the combinations are really, really intriguing, and really like instantaneously, I can think of so many ways I can use this. So thank you. And I think it's a great way for actors to get into a character and explore floating like in that moment, and then they have to punch in this moment, and how that transition works, or how we can get that into their body and into their breath is really interesting. And also, I love space as well, bodies in space. That's what we read when we go to the theater, when we go to see dance. We're reading bodies in space, and making meaning of that and making stories out of that. And yeah, love that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's awesome. And I totally agree. Like when I've been teaching intros to this material where it's like a full weekend and we're going for 17 hours, I do a lot of let's take on things and then let's name what we're seeing, right? So like be a person. Like I have like, who was it? There's a bartender, like a guy who used to own a bar that I worked at. And he's like, oh yeah, and like he had the, like as soon as you put in the shoulder thing and the walk, like the whole attitude comes out. So I like would have people be somebody, not somebody that they're gonna, just somebody that doesn't matter too much, like that they can then take on. And can we look at the move? What does it bring up in us as we do it? What does it bring up in us as we see it? Like all of this stuff, there's so much to it, and it's so fun to explore. Like we try on, and that's why theater and people trying on being different is so healthy for the way that we look at the world. Like it helps not be threatened by everything because we tried it on. Oh, I know what that feels like,
That reminds me of what, oh, sorry,
Go
I'm
ahead,
just
go ahead.
breaking in. Well,
That's great.
when you said about when you see someone with a different effort pattern, you may not trust them. But when we do these practices and expand what's available to us, it creates empathy, because I'm like, oh, I've felt that that punching feeling. I know it, and I'm not intimidated by it, and I don't have to hate it. So I feel like this is like a practice of nonviolence and reducing prejudice and violence in the world, because I can empathize with how you are as yourself, how you behave, and what might be driving it. And then we can have a conversation. I'll shut up again.
Yeah, totally. And actually, it's not so much effort qualities and things that I see that make me like that. It's when things are really shut down in the body, like certain things I'm like, whoa, something's going on there, and I don't know what it is. So, and that is our culture. That is what our culture asks women to do. A lot of it. It's like, ah! So, and I feel like, especially for women who are aging, like, we need models of women that are getting older that we want to age like, that we want to be like that, like, that are in the spotlight, I don't know. Liz Koch is one of my models for that. And Irmgard Bartenieff was another one. Emily Conrad. All the women in Somatics. Bonnie Bainbridge. Like people that are embodying aging. Anna Halprin. Amazing. These people that like, and still making art or making whatever it is, working with people and learning, right? It's a lifelong learning. Like we have to be in that stream of what's possible of the question. Otherwise, it's all shutting down. That was too much talking. Let me just read what Cassie wrote. I love seeing and visualizing the nestle. Yeah. And that's like our heart also inside of our lungs, this nestling. And it's that spiraling, and our heart is a spiral. The efforts feel so good and fun. Ringing is a delight, not a regular movement that I tend to do. Yeah, so we didn't really do ringing. We did it with lightness. We did the ring down here, but if we did it with strength, it's like, you know, you're wringing out the towel or you're wringing out your organs. And if you can bring that into your whole expression, like, so, I mean, that's the thing, like, okay, if I'm, you know, I'm ringing a little bit. Now I'm ringing a little bit more. Now I'm like ringing, I'm getting in there. It's like intestinal, you know, we've got these different ways of being with it.
Hi, I just want to say something really quick. First, not to nitpick, but just as your West Coast emissary, I grew up in the Halperin traditions. It's actually Anna Halperin, and I want.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm not nitpicking.
Yeah. No, it's okay. You can totally nitpick when it's about saying somebody's name right. Anna. Yeah.
And it's just been, you know, I'm doing early childhood here. I have all these different dance and sacred sound backgrounds, mostly from working foundational in my childhood. And this practice has been this missing link. Another teacher of mine, Amber Ryan, will kind of throw out the term architecture. And I thought it was just this weird flex, like this fancy white lady thing where she was like, I'm giving you architecture. And I really, it never, until I had this piece that landed, and now it's become this weird flex for me. When my kid won't go to school, I'm like, well, we're doing La Bonne. Now things can land. Architecture. Anna.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I know I've just gone over an hour, so I'm going to close it out. And I want to say, Carmen, Lindsay, really great to have Dana, Peen, Cassie, Teresa, everyone. So nice to have you all. So yeah, come again. It is every week. I often forget to post the link. It's always the same link. So if you have this one, if you can just copy paste it somewhere so that you know it, then it will make it easier for your life to make it back here again. And Dana, what a treat to have you. Both of you Danas.
I'm on holiday this week from my class because I'm visiting my mom in California. So I was so excited because anyway, yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Lauren. Yeah.
Super great to have you. Yeah.
It's great. Nice to meet everybody in person instead of on video.
Real people on Zoom.
Yeah.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.